Hello, and welcome to It's Gonna Be May All the Day Long Artist Interview Series. For episode 6, we have Karen Archbold. Mezzo-soprano Karen Archbold is a professional singer, voice teacher, and a committed student. She loves to perform with her husband Timothy, who plays the cello in Duo Striata, as well as other groups in the Chicagoland area, including the Bell Ensemble and St. Charles Singers. She's a dedicated mother of 3 beautiful girls, and she also teaches classes for Christian Youth Theater and is the vocal coach for Project Voice. She's recently completed her Pro 2 certification with Total Vocal Freedom, an Alexander technique-inspired organization that works to help singers to sing with their whole selves. And without further ado, here's the interview with Karen Archbold.
So I do a variety of different things, as I'm sure many other artists do. As a performer, my performing work has disappeared. The contracts have been changed, or the gigs have been postponed. A lot of people just don't know what's happening next or how this all will work itself out, and so that has been pretty hard and has really changed a lot of things. I'm a voice teacher as well, and that has also changed, but not quite as dramatically. All of my students are now meeting with me via Zoom, and we're having a lovely time. I think the biggest change in the teaching has been that they've had their gigs postponed or canceled. And quite a few of them are high school students who really feel the loss of that. And not that all of my students really only work towards the next performance, but that's an easy mindset for us all to kind of fall into, right? I make music for the next gig that's right in front of me. And so I've noticed in my teaching the goal becomes, how can I help this student to really discover the joy of making music for right now without necessarily having the next big performance opportunity driving it. So in some ways it's a refining of why we make music. It's a discovering of, I can just enjoy this for me and for you and for the people I'm singing for, and that's really delicious. I've also noticed a really big shift in my teaching, being grateful for this technology, but recognizing that there are some issues with it, especially when it comes to music making. I can't hear the gloriousness of that live voice. I can't be there in the room feeling and sensing the things that are glorious about live music making. And I can be really frustrated with that, or I can choose to be really grateful for some things that are there. And so I've found in my teaching a real shift has taken place. I teach and I make music because I want to connect with people, because I want to love other people, because of what happens when we're doing this incredible thing of music making together. The other stuff is important. The other stuff is part of what I teach. I teach vocal technique. I teach a lot of body mapping and understanding of breathing and diction and a lot of other things. But they're all kind of secondary to loving the student, seeing the potential in that student, and getting out of the way so that their own learning process can happen. And that can happen beautifully on Zoom or via an online format. Except I have to have the right mindset about that, right? I can't quite spend all my time really frustrated because I can't hear their voice perfectly, or all of those overtones aren't resonating quite the same way. So it's really helped me to keep focusing in on why I do this and how I do this. And so it's also true for the performing as well. Really clarifying for myself, I sing because I want to love other people. I want to connect with other people. And are there ways that I can do this online? And it's taken a couple weeks. We're still trying to figure it out. My husband's a professional cellist, and we are starting to make some videos, starting to figure out how do we share this with other people that really need it right now. And so that's a big shift, and maybe a refining thing. It's maybe just clarifying why I teach and what I teach. So I'm really grateful for it. I think it's been tough mentally as well, probably for all of us. But in a normal week, the kids that I'm in contact with are kind of up and down, and that you can be a sensitive person and that doesn't bother you. But right now there are a lot of people who are really struggling, and so me just maintaining a little bit of space for them to feel what they're feeling, but not necessarily having to take it on. That's a thing I'm working on learning. My family is doing really well. So we homeschool. So we're used to spending time together. We enjoy each other quite a bit. We do homeschool, but we are not homebodies. We don't stay at home very much. And so that's been a big grief for me, is watching all of our activities get canceled. We had a lot of fantastic field trips planned, and I enjoy taking my children to all these incredible resources and museums and things that we have going on in this area. And that's gone. So that's been hard a little bit. Maybe more for me than for them, I'm not sure. They continue to have online dance classes, online music lessons. They're meeting with their friends a lot online. They've created a newspaper that they're publishing kind of almost weekly called The Quarantimes. And so they're really enjoying putting that together with they have recipes and jokes that make no sense to me, and interviews, and just really hilarious perspectives on this whole thing. Early on, I read it was really important for children to be writing during this time, because it will be things that they can look back on later and say, wow, that's what I was feeling, or just ways for them to remember this time, that it's a really historical time for all of us. And so anyway, we came up with this newspaper idea, and the thing that's been really fun about it is that they have had a readership grow of adults that wouldn't otherwise read their writing. And so they've really enjoyed having a really receptive audience. So maybe it's just surprising when you put stuff out there sometimes who responds to it and why. I guess absolutely yes, 100%. I've had a couple of friends who have had it and are now on the mend. I have a cousin and his fiance who are doctors in Chicago. They had it really early on, so they're now in the 14 days of quarantine after being finally testing negative. Yeah, one of my students, her grandma passed away. Yeah, definitely seeing the impact of the whole thing, and feeling the weight of that. It's a funny question to think about what I would have done differently if I had known this was coming. I think one of the hardest things about this, this answer might change later, right? Is feeling like I've lost control of my future. Like, this is what I was going to do in March, and this is what I was going to do in April, and I was going to sing this concert in May, and then in July we were doing this retreat, and like these things that I think that I had control over feel like they're gone without me choosing. And so it's really easy for me to feel like, well, if I had done this and this and this in January and February or in December or whatever, then it would have been better. And I'm not sure it would have been. I think this is kind of hard. And I wouldn't have canceled the things in advance. I would, there's not much I could have done differently. And so the biggest thing I'm learning is really about my mindset about all of this, that I cannot control a lot of things. And this is true in non-COVID-19 life, right? I'm not in control of a lot of things that bother me, that are annoying, that are frustrating, but I do control my response to them. I control my attitude, and I can choose to have a pity party for a while. That's totally okay too. It doesn't mean I have to be super positive all the time. I can be really frustrated about this, or I can grieve the fact that I'm not going to get to sing that concert. Because some of that stuff is really sad and hard, and there are people really really seeing some losses right now. But when I'm ready, when it's the right time, when I feel like I want to make a different choice, I think that's there for me. And so I'm grateful right now that I have the choice to see some positive things about this time and to enjoy my family and to see what I can do with my own response. Well, I'm not sure I have more time. That is the first thing. I maybe there are some people that do have a lot more time, but I definitely do not have more time. It feels like I have less time because my children are now with me 100% of the time, whereas they had some activities. But with this time, I am, first of all, giving myself a lot of grace, which I'm not always very good at doing. This is a tough time, and continuing to create art in the midst of the tough time is sometimes really hard. And so it's okay to take a break. It's okay to take a moment. It's okay to go for a walk. For a lot of my students anyway, this is a tough time to make art or make music because they're surrounded by their family. And so finding spaces to make art is part of the problem. For me, I have number one realized that a big deal for me is creating artistic spaces where other people can make art, where I can make art, but where other people can make art. Spaces that are kind and non-judgmental, where we're sharing music and enjoying each other, enjoying singing. So I'm actively trying to create those spaces for my students and for other people. I have been doing a monthly open mic for my students, and I've been doing hosting a weekly open mic for the Total Vocal Freedom community. So I also did one right before Easter, a religious one where people could come and sing some of the songs that they would have sung in church. And these have just been so precious to me. I think they're more almost for the performer than they are for the listener. Some of the sound isn't great, whatever, but to be there and let someone express something in song is such a rich experience. And connecting in that way is just the most precious thing in the world to me. So I do a lot of work with Total Vocal Freedom. It's an online vocal community with Alexander technique principles sort of leading the way. And we had several open mic nights where we had people from all over the world singing songs that they had written. It was just precious. I love it so much. So that's been really important for me, is to provide space for other people. I have been practicing some. I'm sort of finding my way, I guess, in this time a little bit, with nothing specific to practice for. But my husband and I have been doing some rehearsing together and getting back to arranging stuff for our ensemble, which feels really precious. We were contracted to do a weekly concert for late stage Alzheimer's patients. That, of course, has been postponed, but we are working on some videos that they will show them in their home. And that's been really an opportunity that I feel very grateful for, sharing music in that way. I'm not a super great rule follower, schedule follower. And like I said, grace has been really important. But we follow a general schedule. I love to bake, and during the first week of our shelter-in-place order, our oven broke. So I was for a week without an oven at all. That was not so easy when I wanted to be doing a lot of baking. But we got a brand new oven. It's spectacular. I enjoy it very much. I do a lot of sourdough baking. I have a sourdough starter I started 2 years ago, and I enjoy that very much. Yeah, I just enjoy baking. My children and I are doing daily walks, and that's, I think, been really important. I find fresh air just such a life-giving, breathing kind of activity, and I love movement. Just moving my body, simply bringing my thoughts back to awareness of myself, is really, really valuable right now, especially in the stimulus of sitting in front of a computer screen can feel very restricting. And so doing any kind of little movements, that seems to really help me relax and move my body a little bit. Oh my goodness. I have so many goals, and I find this time really, really hard to accomplish them. We are still working on finishing our taxes, and I'm gonna get it done. No, the biggest goal, I think, is to find how I, as an artist, can respond to this time and give back to my community and to my people. I really want to come out of this time a more loving person, both to the world and also to myself, just kinder, more forgiving, more understanding. And I want to have not just put my head under the blanket and hid the whole time, but I'm not sure all of what that looks like. So it's not a clear goal. The goal is still becoming clear, maybe. You are loved. You are needed. What you bring is life-giving and valuable for our world. And in the midst of this time, it might be really hard to find the desire, and that's okay. When it does come, I think we have something to offer, something to bring. And it might look different, or it might be totally new, but it is going to be really important. It is really important. And my encouragement to anyone, but also to myself, is to sing to me first, and then sing to anyone who needs to hear. I'm often really inspired by birds because they sing so freely, and they don't worry so much, it seems, about the sound of the bird next to them. And our songs might all look really, really different, but they're all really, really needed and important. And I think part of what I love about singing is how unique it is to each person. And during this time, you might discover a new song. You might discover a new kind of singing, a new way of singing. Maybe you need to sing sad songs. Maybe you need to sing really happy songs. I don't know what your story looks like. But don't be afraid of taking a break now. Be gracious to yourself. But know that your work is important and valuable. And there will come a time when I think it will be really important that we sing the songs from this time, from the people we've lost, from the sacrifices that have been made. We'll need to make art. And you might feel really alone, but we're in this together. Yeah, find ways to reach out. My goodness, that answer just changes almost every day, I think. A song that keeps kind of coming around for me right now is What the World Needs Now is Love. Just, my goodness, we all just, Love does a lot more good than anything else. So that's, I guess, a song I would use to sort of encourage the world at large. But singing kind of to the people nearby or the people close to me, those songs have been silly songs. They've been made up songs. Just finding ways to make this time joyful or celebratory. I also keep singing He's Got the Whole World in His Hands. That just makes me want to move and kind of makes me happy. I also just want to say thank you to May for this amazing way of connecting. It's a time when we can feel really alone, really separate, and I love that you are doing this to connect artists. And I just am so grateful to be able to reach out and see the way other people are handling, are connecting, making art. It's inspiring to not feel alone.